And it's Vlog 162, and it's me, Jaime, the shut-in cartoonist musician, vlogcasting, of course, from that wonderful location known as the Corn Tortilla Press World Headquarters, which is secured somewhere in the San Francisco Bay Area. Today I'm going to talk about a film which became a TV show, but not specifically about the film and TV show, but why I was so fixated with it as a kid. And that show, of course, was with Michael Parks, and it was Then Came Bronson. Oh yeah, Then Came Bronson, which became the TV show, which I watched religiously. Rolling down that long, lonesome highway. Anyway, that's he. Apparently, he sang that too, I believe, for the show. Yeah, I couldn't find the TV show on disc or any platform, but I did find the film about 5 years ago during the cancer period. This is another one of those things I found for really cheap, and it was fun to watch. And the whole premise, for those of you who don't know, Bronson was this cat that lived in San Francisco. His best friend had died, I think killed himself. And of course, Bronson inherits the guy's Harley, which is some Sportster. I thought it was an 883, but it's a little bigger. And it has a peanut tank on it. And with a Mason a pyramid with the eye on it. I remember that was fascinating too as a kid. And he rolls around the country, seeing America and the people and the realness of it, to be free. And it was during the whole Easy Rider phenomenon as well, but this film and subsequent TV show wasn't quite as esoteric as Easy Rider, if you've seen that. It's a lot more straightforward. And it was just a wonderful film. But my fixation with it was the fact, yeah, the motorcycle was cool, but the fact that here I am like 8, 9 years old, and I'm like, wow, I'm still in grade school. I'm thinking, this dude is free. He wants to be free. He wants to get out there and be free. And yes, today we might call it homelessness, but I mean, he get jobs in workplaces and stuff. That's a real, when it gets to this level, that's a real tricky label to put on somebody because it's a very thin line between the two anyway, especially today. But I was just fascinated with him and with that whole concept. And probably because at this point, middle of grade school, we'd already settled in East Sacramento. My grandfather helped her buy a house there, which was, ridiculously cheap if you think about today's prices. And but we barely managed to hang on to that place and pay for it and pay it off eventually. But neither here nor there. So I was right next to the railroad tracks, 3 doors down from Elvis Avenue, which then was a levee and trains went across it. Half of you watching this know what I'm talking about. Half of you that didn't really grow up there but lived there for a long time, Carol Tyler and her husband Justin Green, they raised their daughter on Elvis Avenue a few blocks down from where I grew up. They know what I'm talking about the trains. And even at that young age, I would go out and hop on the freights and stuff and ride them. I did a couple stories on those and just ride them until they'd speed up and I'd hop off. And how I got to do this at such a young age is I was a latchkey kid. And I mean, probably about 3rd grade, because that's when the last babysitter I had just threw her hands up and gave up on me. I mean, I was acting out. I was still having a hard time with the death of my father and, going through life with my mom who was just working all the time. And it was just, I was really adrift. And, but even back then I knew part of that I appreciated, I really liked, but I also got in trouble. And the babysitter, for instance, I'm supposed to come home right after school, come 6 o'clock, my mom's home going, hey, what goes over to pick me up? And the lady's like, I haven't seen him all day. He hadn't come home. And so my mom still had to pay her. And, of course, the babysitter and my mom were both worried what happened to him. And I would just, fuck off to some kid's house, or whatever, I was like on my own little path. It wasn't a good one, maybe, I don't know. So that was my fixation at a young age of the freedom. Once I got a bicycle and I'd roll all over town on that. And even today, and as I got older in high school, I learned from a few people how to read freight trains and the tracks that were, went north and south along by my house, and how one would, they'd split off at these 2 points and where they were going and how it was going east and west. I knew exactly which was going where. And you could tell by the loads on them and so forth. So that was a real fascinating thing to me. And the whole premise of Then Came Bronson and the whole freedoms. And to this day, now I like bicycle touring. And for those of you not familiar with it, I have I've talked about on here ad nauseum. Kind of looks like a 10 speed to those, but it's a 30 speed. It's a steel frame. It's stretched out and made just for bicycle touring to hold heavy loads and to be more ergonomically correct in riding long distances. And I like that freedom, especially alone. I mean, I plan on touring hopefully with some people down the line, but in the meantime, I'm pretty happy by myself, and I like the whole aspect of being self-supportive. You know, you just have your panniers or panniers, whatever you call them, the bags on the front and back, and everything I need is in there. I have an entire camp. I have everything these days is made so well. It goes down so small. I have an entire tent, footprint for the tent, a mattress, a sleeping bag, even an inflatable pillow. That's just my sleep system. I have a little cooking setup, a little stove, and a little collapsible. They all go together, pots and pans, and kind of little things you need. It's all small and it's all lightweight, and it all goes with you. And I like that. I like that whole self-sufficiency and the freedom of being out and seeing things from a different perspective. You're not in a car, you're not in an airplane. Or as my childhood pal Bob Donnerworth's dad, Norman Donnerworth once said, he called it a flying pencil tube. Going through the air at 600 miles an hour in a flying pencil tube. Yeah, that's what it is. But, you got to get somewhere far in a short amount of time. Anyway, I'm now rambling about it. But that was, I guess, probably Then Came Bronson really resonated with me. As the old American hobo used to resonate with Americans and that whole thing. And now we have a lot of people that are forced into it, called homelessness. And I'm not talking about the alcoholic drug addicts, mentally, unstable or ill people. I'm talking about regular people like you and I that are now living in their cars because they have a decent job, but the rents and stuff are so out of control they can't afford to live in a residence, but they also can't afford to leave the community or the area because then they have to leave their job. And who says there's a job at the other end? So you get kind of stuck. That's frightening. So that's the other end of it that gets really scary. But anyway, I've rambled enough. That's about 7 minutes of your life you're not going to get back. Let me know what you think about your freedoms. I really, to me, it's not the whole freedom like America, and shooting people and all that stuff. My freedom is just, going out and it's not escaping. It's actually joining into life. So I thought about it, even surfing. People go, oh, surfing, it must be nice to have that escape. I go, no, I'm actually joining in. I'm going out and getting more in touch with what's going on with me. And I think the same way with cycling or hiking or riding the rails or whatever. And speaking of riding the rails, if you get a chance, the guy's gone now, but his channel is still on YouTube. Stobe the Hobo, Stobe the Hobo. Really intelligent, dry-witted, funny guy. Plays piano, puts piano music in. He does all these routes, these freight train routes he rides from, some from North Dakota to Whitefish, Montana. He does others, going through the South. There's all these different lines. Like, that's the High Line he's taking. And he does a lot of filming on it and edits it all down. Jim Stobe, who's no longer with us, he was killed a couple of years ago by a train back east. And I always worried about him because the one thing about Stobe is he liked his beer. He'd always talk about procuring beer in the darkest hours of the night. And which, yeah, I'm a guy that likes a beer every now and then, but boy, man, he would just shoot him down. I mean, here you are riding these giant iron serpents that will take your life. And I worried. I'm a dad, I worried about him. Like, dude, you're kind of mixing with some sad stuff. No one ever talks about that, and I don't mean any disrespect because I really loved the guy's work. I liked what he was doing. Anyway, I'll shut up now, but I'll leave you with that. Let me know below what you guys think of freedoms and traveling on your own and doing it, not necessarily by a car or jumping on an airplane or something. Maybe by a boat. Hiking's awesome. John Francis, who lived over in Point Reyes Station there, I used to talk to him about when he, walking around the world. All right, everybody. If you have to go out today, don't forget to mask up. Don't forget to sanitize your hands. Don't forget to keep away from people. But most importantly, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe.